All right, coming in at number 17 on our Locked On Senators NHL Draft Rankings, we're going to Rögle and talking about defenseman Tom Willander.
The third defenseman on our list, Ross. And it's funny, and we'll get into this, but I feel like Tom Willander is the perfect middle between the two defensemen we've talked about. He's not your elite, hard-nosed, big shutdown defender, but he, like David Reinbacher, and he's not your shifty, offensive Axel Sandin Palika. He's somewhere in the middle, which, again, I'm not saying is good or bad. That's just how I feel about him. Depending on what you're looking for in a defenseman as a prospect, as a team, that might really be something that you like is, hey, look, he's a two-way guy that we can use in multiple situations, and we don't need to really get that perfect yin and yang partner for him because he's kind of in the middle anyways.
Yes, he dominated at the J20 level with Sens prospect Oscar Pettersson. I'll tell you what Pettersson thinks about Willander later on in this, but first, his number one assets is skating. Most shutdown defensemen or those types of two-way defensemen, they have to rely on their skating, and that's his best attribute. He takes away plays in the neutral zone. He's really active with his stick. He's got a motor on him. The elite prospects had him in the top 5 for his motor in this draft. They also had him as the 5th best shutdown defenseman and 5th best neutral zone defender in this draft. So you're looking at a guy whose value stems from a combination of that skating and always being engaged defensively. One of the things, little tease, is that Oscar Pettersson told me he's a lot more physical than he might get credit for. So he's a guy, he was even saying in practice, he's a guy who could go and, not run you, but go hard into the boards always. And I think that that's the type of competitiveness that you need in these types of defensemen. And when you look at the body type for a guy like this, I think to play in the NHL, you're going to want him to gain 10, 15 pounds, 180 right now at 6'1". And like I said, the points are all there at the J20 level, 25 points, 39 games, dominant for his team. Might want to cut down on the PIMS a little bit, 22, but he also got tossed in the World Under 18. So the numbers kind of jump out at you. Against Canada, had 25 penalty minutes in, I believe it was the semifinals penalty. So I'm not sure exactly what happened there, but clearly the wires crossed for him, and right shot. So he's also a position of value. And before getting tossed from that last game, or second last game, because he ended up playing the next one, wasn't suspended, had 8 points in 7 games at the tournament.
Yeah, and I think you nailed it with Willander a little earlier, Ross, is the skating is everything revolves around how good of a skater he is. And when you're a defenseman that's a good skater, everything is just a little bit easier for you because you can break up plays before they even develop because you can get into spots where attacking forwards are trying to sneak by, and you can just use your skating to be one step ahead of them. But also it helps you transition the puck up the ice, and he uses that great skating to go end to end with ease. Now, he's not like some of your other prospects where they're able to finish with that transition. He kind of relies on his teammates to go the rest of the way. He's like, I'll bring it here, but then you guys got to do something with it. And that's okay as long as he's got the right support from the right line mates. But what I like from him defensively is his first thought is, I'm going to take this guy wide. If a guy's attacking me, take him wide, take him wide, take him wide, and don't let him even think about going to that middle part of the ice. And I think as a young defenseman playing over in Sweden, that's a transitional skill that he's going to be able to bring to North America, especially they got the bigger ice surfaces there. So if he's able to keep them wide on the big surface, he should have an easier way to keep them wide on a small surface.
And we're going to find out right away because a rare move, we're seeing him already committed to Boston University. And when you talk about a great neutral zone defensive defenseman, who better to pair him with than Lane Hutson, who we discussed last year, raved about last year.
So good.
As a prospect, and he goes 62nd. I still cannot believe that he fell that far. This is Pilsy. We always talk about on Locked On Senators, the yin and yang. I don't think there's a better example of it in college hockey next year.
Yeah, honestly. And that's the thing. Like, that's a really good D pair because you're not going to rely on Lane Hutson to carry the puck up the ice every single time.
Well, that's the crazy part.
He can, but it's not like teams are going to be like, oh, dump it in Willander's zone because he's just a absolute liability with the puck, right? Like they're not going to be avoiding Lane Hudson every time, because if you keep bringing it over to Tom Willander, he's going to end up carrying the puck up the ice himself. So I think that's a really good skill that he has, and he's able to get shots through to the net, and I really feel that he projects as a safe two-way defender.
Craig Button, who a lot of his is through international tournaments and talking to scouts, he has him at 8 on his list, Pilsy. He has him at 8. He's the second defenseman behind Axel Sandin Pellikka, 8th on his list, whereas Corey Pronman has him 15th. Scott Wheeler has him 27th. Chris Peters has him 17th, and Elite Prospects 23. So there is a wide range. He's going to be a first rounder, though, and I think whichever team gets him, man, it's going to pay off. It might take a couple of years, but I would bet on the upside for Tom Willander.
Okay, so I'll ask you the same question I asked when we compared other defensemen. Yep. Would you take Tom Willander over either Axel Sandin Pellikka or David Reinbacher?
I would take him before Axel Sandin Pellikka. I would take David Reinbacher is my number one defenseman.
Interesting, because I really thought you liked Sandin Pellikka.
I do. I just think that the whole package of Reinbacher puts him at number one. Okay. And I think that it's just a more safe pick. So I think it depends what team to an extent. I don't think that they're miles off. They were a pair for parts of the World Under 18.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
And they looked really good together as well. So I would just kind of take, and maybe Jake Sanderson's immediate impact kind of skewed my thought process, but it feels like these great skating defensemen are having a lot easier of a time entering the league. And if he's as physical as Oscar's telling us he is, then he's my type of defenseman as well.
Yeah, nice. I would agree with you. Now, I'm not saying they're miles apart, but personally, I think Willander's skating skills gives him the edge.
And Scott Wheeler says he's strong in all three zones, two-way defenseman who's a confident and decisive game that uses his beautiful balanced skating to push forward or fall back on his heels and outlet the puck. Peters says while he did not showcase a particularly high-end offensive toolkit, tremendous skater, high-end defender. Willander can be physical and has a good defensive stick. And now we'll give you a bonus one. On the ice, he is probably one of the best skaters that I've ever played with. Good hands, good shot, and plays more physical than you think he will do. Thumbs up. That's from Oscar Pettersson, Ottawa Senators prospect and leading point per game scorer on Rögle's J20 team, where Tom Willander was the leading defenseman. So that's from a guy who was in a ton of goal celebrations with him this season. What did Pettersson have? What was it? 20 goals in 21 games at that level?
I know he had at least 20 goals. Yeah.
So nasty. All right. But any final thoughts that you have on Tom Willander?
Yeah, I like him. And I think we're going to see once Reinbacher is selected. I do believe he will be the first one selected. I'd be shocked if not. I think we're going to see maybe even a team trade up to get him, because there's not a lot of high talent defensemen in this first round. And if a team is after that, you might have to pay a pretty penny to get it. So don't be surprised if we see that.
More Locked On Senators draft profiles on our YouTube channel.